You're listening to Trainual's SMB Consulting Show with Bradford Jones.
Hey, it's Bradford again from Trainual. I'm the Implementation Experience Manager here at Trainual. Well, not here at Trainual, from my kitchen right now, unfortunately, but as we're remote. But we're so excited right now for this episode of this series to be joined by Wendy Tadokoro. She's the founder of Organizing Works. They're in Australia, so this is one of our Australian certified consultants. We're really happy to have her, and we're looking forward to her sharing some insight. So, Wendy, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Bradford. Nice to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're dealing with the time zone thing going on. The sun's going down there. The sun's coming up there. But we do have a ton of great Trainual customers there in Australia. And I know you work with a lot of our customers here stateside as well. And so, obviously this is a time of change in the world, unfortunately. And so one of the things that you have a lot of expertise on and different things like that is maybe managing the change of that and some different things, maybe some pushback that we're having and some different change. So why don't you tell me a little bit about just some of the things that you experience in your business and, working with your clients and just the different challenges that you've had and how you've addressed some of those as it comes to the documentation and the systemization process in businesses.
Yes, at these difficult times that we're faced at the moment, I feel that a lot of people are forced to have time on their hands, and that's something that we've always wanted to have. And when you're faced with that time, there's a lot of things you can do. You can go and watch Netflix, but it's also, on the flip side of that, it's time to actually look at your business and reevaluate a lot of things in your business. And for those clients who contact me initially for just inquiries or people just out there thinking about systemizing the business, there's a couple of things that I suppose holds them back from sort of jumping in with both feet. In fact, I just got somebody reach out yesterday about, I've got Trainual, but I'm not really sure how I'm going to implement this in my business and what am I going to use it for, and just the systemizing of the business. How does that fit in? And of course, Trainual is a great tool, but we have to look at the plan. What is systemizing the business? It's more than just a tool that we use. So I just wanted to talk today and address a couple of those reasons why I find, in my experience, that people are sort of hesitant, if you like, or just feel that overwhelm when they come to, well, I know I need systems in my business and I've got sort of bits and pieces going. I really need to do this. And the fears, I suppose, that they have, I call them the myths that is, I suppose, circling around. And so there's lots of things that come up, but the main things I find that come up is, well, it's a lot of work. It's going to take me a lot of time, use up a lot of resources, and I'm busy in my business. I'm often doing a lot of things as we do as business owners, with a chief bookkeeper, with we're micromanaging, we're just keeping everything running. And where am I going to find this time to do all this work? It's not something I can do in a week. So that's one of the myths. The other one is, well, what if I do a lot of this work? And I've even got a great system like Trainual. What about my team? How am I going to get them on board with me and following those, actually using them and following them? Is it another thing that I'm just going to have put in place and nobody follows through with it? Mm-hmm. And like I said, there's more things than that come up, but they seem to be the number two, the two main reasons.
Yeah, the capacity issue is really interesting because we use time as an excuse for everything in our lives, right? It's like, why am I not in better shape than I want to be? It's because I don't have time to work out, or that I'm always traveling and things like that. Or, why don't I, certain areas of my life, it's like time is kind of the easy thing to push off. But what I hear you saying is that, one, right now with everything going on in the world, we may not have that as an excuse because we've been forced to have some extra time. The second thing is that if we figure out what the ROI is on that time, maybe, us business owners want to generate an ROI. If we try to figure out how to sell a widget or make a widget for $1 and sell it for $5, that maybe if we approached it that way, there might be some good ROI in really investing that time. Is that right?
Absolutely. It's difficult to put a figure on systemizing your business, because if you put a sales strategy in place, you're more likely to be able to monitor that. If you decide to send out a certain number of emails, you can look at your email manager and say how many got received, how many got opened, how many people clicked through. You can measure it more. With systems, it's a longer process, and it takes time to see those rewards. But once you get there, obviously there's huge benefits to that. So my saying is always, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing well. So if this is something that you're going to implement in your business, it's not something you can just tick a box and say, I've done that. It's something that is a longer process, but it's going to have those benefits. And we can just address some of those benefits. I mean, there's so many that you could go through, but I suppose the main ones is, again, freeing you as the business owner up. That's the next one. You're really doing a lot of things if you really examined what you're doing, and this is something that you can do as well if you've got some time, is to think through what you do on a daily basis. Okay, work through all the tasks that you do, and you'll be surprised to actually see how much time. A lot of people, we just do things because we think that'll take me a couple of minutes, but when we escalate that and see how many times we're doing that, during a week, those things can be huge. So looking at ways you can free up some time, which is then putting a system around something or getting that information out of your head and delegating that to somebody else so they can do that to your standards. So that's one of the big things. And of course, having that freedom allows you to then grow the business.
Yeah, that's a trackable thing too, right? I mean, you could track, how many times you're typing out the same email, and if you turned it into a template or something like that, or just some other thing, we could give ourselves a scorecard around that. Which us as business owners and managers, we want those kind of things, like you talked about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And emails, like I said, that's a big one. We can catch ourselves doing these things. So next time that happens, take an extra 5 or 10 minutes to then capture. We'll use that as an example, because that's a great one. I've sent this email. I send it 3 or 4 times a week. Let's capture that and put that into, into our Gmail or whatever, or into a text expander type thing where we can reuse that, or we can put that into our Trainual so that somebody else can use that template for us. And so freeing up time is one of the big ones. The other one is consistency and predictability in your business. So I'm assuming if you've been in business a while, you've got some proven systems, you know how to deliver your service, and hopefully most of the time it's delivered to a high quality standard. But that's often not documented. So you have somebody new in the business, or somebody who just, isn't fulfilling their role, and something is not delivered to standard. Yes, so we want to make sure that every customer experience is the same standard. Doesn't matter who picks up the phone or who delivers the service to them. So again, having that as a documented system and enforced with your training initially as well when somebody joins. This is how we do it here, and because we know this is the standard, we need to every customer needs to be, and it's not just customers, internal customers as well. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about here. So everything needs to be consistent the way you deliver it.
Yeah, one thing there, I'd love to hear your take on it, is because some pushback I hear from people about systemizing things along those lines, especially like maybe it's a script or something they're using for a sales call or something like that. A lot of the pushback I would hear back in my former consulting days would be that we want them to be able to, say what they want, or let them use their personality or their terms or something like that. So what would, just real quickly, because I don't want to derail the whole conversation, but what would you say, what framework would you put around like that in that scenario, to where you could say, okay, we want you to follow the procedure, but we want you to be able to have some freedom with it as well?
Yeah. So I would say that some processes in your business are just non-negotiable. They have to be done a certain way. Okay. Things have to be packaged a certain way. A label has to be put on a certain way. Those things are pretty standard, and they're easy to standardize. The tool processes you're talking about is things like sales processes, also things that are creative. So I like to use the example of a web designer. If you're going to employ a web developer or a designer in your business, you're not going to get somebody straight out of school that's never developed a website before. Okay, they're going to come with their skills, and that's what you want them to come to your business with, those skills. So you're not going to tell them how to do their job, but what you're going to do is you're going to give them some guidelines around, say, how they communicate with the client, what they need to send, what questions they need to ask, what time frame do they need to have phase 1, 2, or 3 of the project developed by. Those things you can put the systems in place for. But to tell them how to design I don't know the terminology, a UX or something, dashboard, that's what they're doing, and you're not going to, otherwise you'd be doing it yourself most likely. The other thing is like sales. Yeah, scripts as well. So that's a big one. And she came up recently with a client. And they definitely got pushback on, I don't want to say this, I don't feel comfortable in saying that. So with those types of things, what I would say is make sure you document the outcome. So if the outcome is we want somebody to sign up for a membership, as long as we get there in an ethical way, we may slightly change our terminology that we use in our script. So I would give somebody the resources to help them get that outcome. Now, as long as they are getting that outcome in, as I said, in a way that is congruent with your business, then as long as that is acceptable, that is the way I would handle that. Because a lot of people don't want to say, I sometimes will rewrite an email if somebody's written something, or it doesn't feel right, or if I've found something on the internet and I've looked at that and go, yeah, I can use that, but I customize it because it doesn't sound like it's coming from me. And so those are things we can do. We can just help our team by giving them the resources. Another just quick point on that with sales is one way of doing especially sales, whether it's face-to-face or on a call, is actually to get your top salesperson to actually record them doing that. And so somebody can listen to the audio or watch a video of a role play and see how they can, again, achieve the same outcome, but using their own personality, if you like, with that.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because it's not saying that the person who, like the top salesperson, may not be able to write their own SOPs because that's not their skill or their system or whatever, but that doesn't mean they don't know how to do it. And that doesn't mean that there's not SOPs to be gleaned from the process they follow every time. So I love that. Yeah. I love that, that example right there. That's perfect.
So along with the myths, so we've talked about some of the rewards or the payoff, if you like, for systemizing your business. So some of the ways that you can make that easier on yourself, the number one is really getting a team involved. So if you have a team, whether it's 1, 2, or 10, 20 people, you need to get them involved at some level. Okay. So the first thing is around, and this we talk about this more when we're talking about getting the team to follow the process, is if you get them involved in the beginning, understanding your purpose for doing it, making sure they understand what's in it for them, because everybody wants to know what's in it for them. Yes, it's going to add a few extra things for them to do initially. So they want to know, well, why am I giving this extra workload? What does that mean to me personally? So we have to really address that first and foremost. Get some people on your side as far as they're the sort of people in your business that maybe they've got some experience doing this before, or they're just, a lot of people are not, systems and things aren't their thing, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But then you've got the superstars that stand out and say, yeah, I'm in with this, I'm going to help you with this process. And so get them on board, get them doing things. And that's a whole nother conversation, another time for what things they can do. But just first of all, I would get, if you've got team managers or heads of department, I would get them involved, because then they can help to then feed that through to their team and help with that. So that basically what I'm trying to say here, the business owner or the manager doesn't have to be doing everything. Okay, they can delegate some of this out, but the first thing is to get everybody on the same page, going in the same direction, knowing what the goals are of the systemization process, and then individually giving them some roles to do. And that can be managed, depending on the size of your business. So some of the things they can do is they can write down what they actually do in the business, so you get that comprehensive list. Then they can go on to planning. So who's going to write these? And it doesn't have to be the person. It can be somebody that interviews them. It could be somebody in the business, like I said, a superstar who puts their hand up to say, I'm going to help with this, and I'm going to help with the documentation, and then giving them a lot of resources. So there's a lot of things on the Trainual website. There's templates they could borrow and use those and customize them. There's a lot of information out there to help them with what documentation looks like. And it doesn't have to be a Word document. It doesn't have to be just text. I know that there's a lot of video resources to help that actually you've done, Bradford, as well, about making those like videos and trainings more engaging. So there's a lot of things that they can do to help within the business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's, just I love driving home this point, because that people don't have to write their own SOPs or their procedures or their processes. I think sometimes people, just like you said, aren't either on board or wired that way. And so it makes a ton of sense to outsource that, even if it's internally. Obviously we've got partners like you who can help people do that and bring it out. But to your point of the advice, I mean, it makes complete sense to, utilize some other people and get some champions in the business. That's what we like to say, is find
absolutely.
some champions of that in the business.
So I quickly touch, I know we haven't got a lot of time left, but I'm just going to quickly touch on the last myth around business owners worrying about doing a lot of work and then they're not being used and not being followed in the business. So we have touched on this already. I would say number one, again, is to get people involved in the business, to get the team understanding what it means to them, what it means to the business. That's number one. And I call that building a systems culture. Okay, so this is something that you can do over time. So that's really key to getting people involved. And then the actual involvement themselves, like we've talked about, those things that they can do, that gives them more buy-in. So if they're doing a lot of the work, they don't want to see that work go to waste as well. And then having somebody, you mentioned somebody like a systems champion, or you can have a systems manager, or somebody who oversees that whole process as far as implementation as well. So that's like, yes, we've done a lot of documentation. Now we're actually going to roll that out. And there's another episode there for how we can roll that out in the business. But, having a system like Trainual is one thing, but then it's a matter of it's not just like sending out invites and hope that everybody will just do it. There's a whole set of steps in there that we need to get everybody involved. And that could involve meetings. It can involve at a team level. There's so many things that we can do to help them through that as well. So around assigning them tasks to do, people to update, whether that's in their department or on an individual level, that they have ownership. That's a really key thing as well, that they have ownership of their own processes, that they don't become outdated, and that we bring those up in our regular meetings. What can we improve in the business, and what can we keep up to date with our systems and processes? So I've sort of given that in a bit of a nutshell, but they're the basic things that we need to do. So it's around culture, having somebody responsible or taking that ownership within the business to see that through. Again, not always being on the shoulders of the business owner. And then have those regular reviews, and as things change in the business, make sure that those changes are implemented and show in our systems and processes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had some reorganization, just like not with roles, just in our company, because with everything going on in the world right now, like we needed some extra people on one team, and then their team didn't necessarily have the same, demand that it normally has. And so we were trying to pivot pretty quickly. And so what we tried to do is document in that documentation. We needed to take person A in role C over, to role D. We needed to create a quick thing of how to do that. And we did that and tried to make it, we did Loom videos and we did certain things like that because, but if we just let that die and we never do anything with it, then there was no point. We should have just trained somebody over their shoulder, and just wasted that time. So I think to your point, it's like, if you're going to change it or you're going to do these things, it's like, you need to make sure you're updating it, because there's no point. You and I have probably had both had clients before where we help them build out a system, and then we go visit them a year later and that system's on the shelf somewhere and hasn't been used. And so it takes the implementation internally to make it work.
Yeah, they're living documents. They have to be nurtured. You need to feed and water them. Keep them growing. And like you said, when things, when we have to pivot quickly like this, that's when we're going, that's great. We've got our systems in place. We may have to develop them quickly, like out on the fly, but now we've got them. And that allows us to do things like cross-training. Somebody can't come into work. Somebody else can do that role. And we can get them up to speed a lot quicker because we've done the work ahead of time. So that's a pure example of benefits to systemizing. Yeah,
and that's what we're trying to do internally at Trainual, is practice what we preach, and that's what we're trying to do. So hey, Wendy, it's been so awesome. Obviously, we're going to tee up something later on to hear more of your insight later on, but I think what you said tonight, this morning for you, is that there's a lot that we can do with this opportune time right now. We're in end of March, early April, in 2020, and times are changing, right? And so we'll see what happens in the next few months. But what we want for our users and for everybody is to come out on the other side of this really strong. And so I think with what you've kind of laid out, today, I think there's some really actionable items to say, okay, we've got some extra time maybe, or maybe we've, our business has changed a little bit. And these are some really cool things. So I'm really thankful that you were able to share your knowledge and expertise with us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks
I know for having me.
Trainual customers can find you on the trainual.com certified consultants page, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about your business and how people can contact you?
Yeah, so I help small business owners in Australia and all around the world actually as well. Got some clients in the US. And what we help is to get that sort of knowledge out of the business owner's head and get that into, like I just explained, here, getting that out into a tangible, I call it a business operating system. That is one place where you can keep all the knowledge of your business, all your processes, all your training. And then, as I say, the benefits to that are to be able to free up your time, grow the business, work on the business. It's all about working on the business, not in the business. And so that's what I help businesses to do. And also for businesses that need that little extra help at actually getting those documents. So if you're working with a team to try and get those systems documented, so helping the team to develop those, obviously I can help you do that in a quicker, more efficient way. And if you need help to actually extract those processes as well, then that's what we do. So yes, all the details I think are through the on the website, like you mentioned. My website's on there, and happy to help anybody. If you've got any questions, just get in touch.
Perfect. Well, we really appreciate you. We're proud to have you in the Trainual family, and we appreciate your time. And hopefully I'll be down under sometime soon to see you and see some of our Trainual customers. That would be a good...
that would be great. We can have a real coffee together, not a virtual coffee.
I need to ping Chris and see if we can get that on an expense report somewhere. So, but hey, Wendy, Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Trainual's SMB Consulting Show with Bradford Jones. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you'd like to learn more about Trainual and our certified consultants, head over to Trainual.com.